Hey everybody, Eric Grenier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this week's episode of The Numbers. Philippe, this year is starting off with a bang. It's going to be a heck of a 4 months ahead of us.
Good morning, Eric. Happy New Year to you and all of our listeners and viewers on YouTube. Did you have a restful and relaxing holiday, my friend?
I would say so. I think so. But we all knew this was going to come, and we all knew this first week of getting back into the swing of things was going to be pretty intense. And without fail, Justin Trudeau resigned on Monday morning,
Right.
and it already feels like it was weeks ago. How are you? How did you receive that news? Were you shocked? Were you surprised?
Well, here's the thing. We mentioned this on previous episodes that logic was out of the window. This should have happened months ago. And the more time passed, you realize, okay, is this guy really staying? Even though the caucus doesn't want him, even though the polls are terrible. And there was a point where I think many people online, many journalists and myself says, well, maybe he's going to hang on till the very last minute. And I guess January 6th was the last minute. But the liberals, they're still in trouble. This is not solving anything in the short term. But when we talk about maybe the rebuilding, the reconstruction of the federal liberals, this was step one of many, many steps to come. But how about you? Were you surprised? Well, thing is, it was leaked in the Globe and Mail. Robert Fife, of course. Sunday night. How did you react when you saw that news, Eric?
I think we all kind of had it circled on the calendar that if it was going to happen, it was probably going to happen in the first few days of January. I think when we heard that that national caucus meeting was taking place on Wednesday, that was going to probably seal the deal.
Yeah.
When you heard that, the Ontario caucus, the Quebec caucus, the Atlantic caucus, and I think the BC caucus, which represented 80% of the caucus, all said that they thought that he should resign. Pretty clear that was going to come to a head, and better to at least come out ahead of what was going to be a rough day and resign rather than push it for another few days.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we had still to go through 2.5 more days of is he going to resign? What's going to happen? I did find it very interesting, though, that we got pretty much the same Justin Trudeau in his resignation announcement that we get when he's not resigning. There was no... part of me was wondering, is he going to take a different tone, take a different approach, be a little bit maybe more forthcoming? No. There was not really any indication of any contrition or even an admission that he might have been, in some tiny little way, responsible for what had left,
Yeah.
what had happened in the weeks before. Saying how he was stepping aside because of internal disputes within the party. He was stepping. Freeland, he had offered her a position, and she said no, and that disappointed him. I was curious to see if there was going to be any sort of recognition that maybe Justin Trudeau himself had been, just maybe contributing to the reasons why there was that internal fighting. But nope, it was the same Justin Trudeau. And I'm very curious to see what he's going to do for the next 2 months, 3 months, how much of a role he will play in that leadership race.
I mean, this could come in time, but just as you say this, Eric, it's not surprising. Right? Perhaps you expect a resigning leader to be humbled by events and by the end of your reign, but it may come in time. But it's strange. I wasn't expecting this at all.
No.
The comment about electoral reform. I think had a lot of people, including myself, and I'm sure you as well, Eric, frowning a lot, okay, this guy really wanted rank ballots, right? Rank ballots or nothing, which is strange because if you go back to 2015 when he made that promise, he said this would be the last election on their first past the post, and it was wide open. I wonder if history would have been different if on the platform it says we're going to do rank ballots and nothing else, and you're on board or you're against us. But no, that was a mistake from the start. and he's still. I mean, he wasn't asked about electoral reform. He brought it up, right?
He had 4 questions, each of them with a follow-up, and he used one of them on electoral reform, which is kind of, I'm sure a lot of our Discord members, for example, were very excited to see it, to hear it. But yeah, I was not expecting that. We do actually have some questions about that in the mailbag, so we'll get to it later. So let's talk about what else? The polls?
We should
probably talk about it.
It's been, obviously, we understand why, but for a first week of January, it's been very busy in the polls. Yeah. So we had Palastera, we had Relay Strategies, we had Ipsos and Abacus. Abacus had the tease in the Toronto Star on Wednesday. The rest of the poll will be published in the Thursday afternoon. So we have the numbers, so we can discuss about it. So where do you want to start, Eric? Do you want to talk about the numbers pre-resignation and post-resignation?
I think it's useful to set that context, right? Because we talked about it a little bit. I think when we had our last episode of the year, there was a few polls that had come out post-Freeland resignation. But over the holidays, there was 6 that came out that were done entirely after that.
Yeah.
And it's clear that it did have an impact, right? But it wasn't the impact I think a lot of us might have expected. Yes, the Liberals dropped, which is what we expected. Abacus had them at 20, so did Ipsos and Leger. Research Co. had them at 21. Ecos had them at 19. The Angus Reid Institute had them at 16. So we were starting to get into the Michael Ignatieff numbers. These are a point or two different from what the Liberals had in that 2011 election. But the NDP was not getting a bump out of this. The NDP was also taking a bit of a hit. I averaged it out. On average, the NDP actually dropped half a point compared to when all these pollsters were last in the field. It was the Conservatives that got another bump. They were anywhere from 43 to 47% support across all those polls. They were up about 2 points. That, I thought, was the surprising thing, that the last people who left the Liberals because they were upset about the Freeland resignation finally went over to the Conservatives, not going over to the NDP. That surprised me a little bit.
Well, okay, here's my answer to that, and I don't want to bore people with math, but this is called the numbers, so bear with me. This is a typical example of the denominator changing. Right? It's not those few points have not gone to the Conservatives. It's just Liberal voters tuning out. And so when you have fewer Liberal voters tuning in to polls because they don't like what's happening, they're disappointed with how events turn, they tune out because it was just before Christmas. It's like the hockey team that loses, they lose viewership. And I think that's the same thing here, that many Liberal voters, or traditionally Liberal voters, just tune this out. And by default, everybody goes up, except, of course, the NDP. And so we have to be careful here. We could see a scenario, a very similar scenario to Ontario in 2022, or even the federal in 2011, where basically the turnout goes down dramatically and Conservative voters show up. And so the combined results of those two events would shoot the Conservatives at the 45, 46, 47%, inching closer to 50 here, right? Yeah. We haven't seen a 50 yet, because I think when the average was in the low 40s, a 50 would have been considered an outlier. If we saw a 50 next week, Eric, it would be in the high end of the bracket, but it would not be a statistical outlier, right?
Yeah.
So be careful here. I don't think there's been a switch towards the Conservatives, but the Conservatives base is holding strong and is ready. It cannot be readier for an election.
With the NDP's numbers, it's possible, as you said, that it is just kind of people opting out of really getting involved in the poll. Like there's that question of enthusiasm. When you're not very enthusiastic for your party, you're less likely to even want to take part in a poll.
Oh, yeah.
But it might also explain a little bit of the NDP's very quick reversal, or not reversal, but firming up of their position. In the first few days, Jagmeet Singh was saying all options were on the table. He was still not committing to bringing the government down to the next opportunity. And then I can't remember what day of the week it was, but it was only a few days later. And he said now nothing had actually changed, but he'd said now we're going to vote down the government regardless of whoever the next leader is.
Yeah.
So it does maybe suggest that over those first few days, the NDP might have been hearing from its own supporters, maybe from its caucus as well, that that line wasn't going to work. And we've definitely seen a firmer position from the NDP. The bloc, we always knew, was done, back in October, November. Conservatives, obviously done. And the NDP now says that they're going to vote the government down. So there's really no wiggle room for any of the parties to back the government. Would be walking all over the paint that they've painted in the corner of the room. So it does look like we're going to have an election shortly after the Parliament returns on March 24th, with a voting day on May 5th or May 12th. And May 12th, I think you chose in our over-under as the actual voting day before we knew any of this. So congratulations to you. I think it will end up being May 12th.
Huh. Well, May 19th is a stat holiday, right? It's Victoria Day or La Fête des Patriotes in Quebec. And so, and if the government goes down, I mean, the procedure here, I mean, I've heard many conflicting arguments that how the procedure works. So there's going to be a throne speech in the week of March 24th.
But on the 24th, yeah.
On the 24th, okay.
Yeah.
I've been told that the vote on a throne speech doesn't have to be on that day or even on that week. It can be later. So, I mean, I don't know what you know about this, but I've heard conflicting reports here.
From what I've read, there's at least 3 votes that are almost certainly going to take place that week.
Okay.
There's a vote on supply to get money for the government. One of the reasons why they couldn't prorogue longer than March was on March 31st, the government runs out of money. So there is going to be a vote on supply to get money for the government. They do have to apparently have an opposition day before the supply vote. So the opposition is certainly going to put forward a non-confidence motion. And the vote on the speech from the throne, they don't technically have to have one, but it would be kind of a weird thing not to do. So it does seem like in one way or another, there's no way the government survives that week. And when you extend then the calendar for at least a 36 to 50 day election, with an election on a Monday, your only 2 options, the only 2 that work, are May 5th and May 12th. And if you're the Liberal leader, the new prime minister, you probably want that extra week.
Yeah, Cinco de Mayo or May 12th. Well, that'll be interesting. I mean, I've joked online that my semester starts in January, of course, and my final exam is scheduled for May 13th. So I'll be very happy the day after the election to not have to perform in front of my students and just look at them write their final exam. So that'll be interesting. But I mean, you just mentioned a moment ago the NDP would have to walk back on the paint. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, right?
This would be the wettest paint that they would have walked on.
Maybe so, yeah. What did you make of, so those Liberal numbers, somewhere between 16 of the Angus Street Institute, I think we can agree that's a tad low, to 2021. As you said, this is very close to Michael Ignatieff numbers, a shade under 90% he received in a very low turnout election. It looks like we're heading towards that, right? I mean, the NDP not being able to convert any of those Liberal voters into their fold for the past, not just recently, for the past year and a half, right? They're not suddenly going to discover Jagmeet Singh and the NDP. And another thing I wanted to mention is that Research Co poll, also Nanos had, there were 2 or 3 polls that had the Conservatives above 50% in British Columbia. And so this would decimate the NDP. We don't see the NDP making significant gains elsewhere. Perhaps we mentioned perhaps a few in Toronto, perhaps a few in Montreal, Halifax. But if they get decimated in the West, especially in BC, they're looking at their own downfall. So will they find a way to extend this government until October? Because if it's not May 12th, it's not going to be in the summer, right? So that means we're going the distance into October. I wonder about the odds here.
I have. I mean, I could see maybe the NDP could do that, but what would be the point? How many more months would you gain? How many more times would you have to vote confidence in the government between March 24th and the adjournment in June?
Yeah.
And for what? A couple extra months? I think that the cost of having propped up the government for that amount of time would send them even lower. So there's not a lot of great numbers for the NDP.
No.
They're the Liberals also have a lot of bad numbers, but I still think that at some point, it's going to hurt too bad if you align yourself with the Liberals one more time. So I don't see a scenario, and maybe I'll come to regret this, but I don't see a scenario where the government survives that week of voting, which might even not happen. Who knows? Maybe the new prime minister decides, why bother with this? I'll do a throne speech and dissolve the legislature right afterwards and send voters to the polls. We could be in an election on March 25th.
Wow.
Could
That
happen.
would be something, huh?
Yeah, it would.
Eric, before we move on to the Liberal leadership, I wanted to talk about the numbers on Trudeau's resignation itself. And so Palace Data had a poll that was conducted on that day, so that afternoon and that evening. Palace Data fielded a poll. Yeah, it had voting intentions, but it was not the main focus of that poll. It was a Trudeau resignation. And so the question is simple. How satisfied are you with Justin Trudeau's decision to step down as Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party? So from coast to coast, it was a sample of 1328, so a reasonable sample for a federal poll. 59% said they were satisfied, 19 said they were not, and 19 said they were neither satisfied or unsatisfied. So this is a 3-to-1 ratio. And when we look at the breakdown of the results of this question, age groups, genders, regions, polling regions of the country, everywhere you see more than 50%, a majority of respondents say they are satisfied with Trudeau's resignation. And I think that there were some Liberal voters, progressive voters, I think that underestimated how much Trudeau had become toxic to many, many Canadians. And so I know he has his fans, but it was not just conservatives that wanted him gone. Now, when you break down the results of this question by voting intentions, of course, among the remaining Liberal base, the numbers are better for Trudeau, but most of them still are satisfied with his resignation. And those numbers from Palace, they confirm basically what we thought, that Trudeau had become really toxic, and maybe the Liberals could get a very small, modest bump out of this addition by subtraction.
Ipsos also had a question on that. I don't think they gave people the option to say, I don't know, or something like that, but it was 4-to-1 in terms of satisfaction, right? And that was with a little bit more time to digest the news. We do have 4 polls that did come out, as you mentioned, since the resignation.
Yeah.
They do not show that this has had much of a change. The Palace Data poll did show that there was a reduction in the gap between the Conservatives and the Liberals since, I think it was October, of 5 points. But the Relay Strategies poll showed that the gap increased by a point. Ipsos showed that it increased by 3. And Abacus, I think, also showed that it increased by 1, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, the early results are that in the one poll, maybe it would have helped, but on the whole, it doesn't seem like it's actually changed anything. So those last polls that we saw at the end of the year, post-Freeland resignation, might be the new reality, at least until the new leader is named.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So again, we have to be careful here, because when we see numbers that seem to diverge, and I don't think they do diverge, it's close enough, but we are talking about a major event happening early in the year where most people are not back to work or students back to school, right? So we have to be careful here. We're going to see a lot of fluctuations. When public opinion is in flux, it's normal to see fluctuations. And so when you talked about Palace Data, in October, it had a 22-point gap between the Liberals and Conservatives. Now it was 17. But don't forget that a gap is 2 measures. It's not 1. The Conservatives went from 45 to 44 to 42. That's within the margin of error. And the Liberals, it was the same thing. It went from 23 to 25. Again, small movement. It will be polling after polling after polling over many weeks that we see the realization of what happened. I think many Canadians on the evening of January 6th were not entirely aware of what was going on. And I don't blame them. It was, it's early in the year, and not everybody follows politics to the same rhythm as you and I, Eric. So, but yeah, no significant change for now, which in itself is something, but we'll see when the race starts, which should be soon, because they don't have a choice. It has to be a quick race.
Yeah, why don't we talk about that Liberal leadership race? So,
Yeah.
The latest reporting that we've seen, we're recording this on Thursday morning, is that the rules for the race should be finalized on this weekend. So maybe by the end of the weekend or early next week, we'll actually know when the race will officially begin, although it's unofficially already started.
Yeah.
Though a lot of leadership candidates, I think, have to wait until the rules come out, because if finally, the rules come out and it's a entry fee of $500,000, then that's going to whittle out some people.
Yeah.
But we're waiting to see when that's going to start. And as you said, it has to start pretty fast and it has to end pretty early. March 24th is when Parliament returns.
Yeah, that's right.
You want to have the person in place for a little while to at least write a speech,
God, that's so
throne
fast,
speech,
though.
and maybe make cabinet changes. I don't know, like that. So, you're looking at a race that is probably going to end early March.
Oh, I was thinking like mid-March, but okay. Like it's just,
How long do you want to
fast.
give you the new prime minister in like at least a week?
Yeah, but they have a charter, they have a constitution, the party, that they have to respect rules. And it's interesting that it seems that the Liberal constitution does not have a clause for emergencies, right?
Well, they have some ability to change some of the rules, but it's kind of opaque as to which rules can be changed.
Yeah.
Because one of the words it says it's the ability of the national board or whatever it is to change is limited, includes but not limited to, and then says a couple of things. So
Yeah.
I guess maybe they could do anything. It's really not very clear, but they seem to want to stick to the spirit of the constitution of the party.
Yeah.
Which probably means one of the key numbers is that, as it is in the rule book, is that you have to have been a member or a registered Liberal 41 days before the actual vote takes place.
Okay.
There's not that many days left, right?
Before the vote. Before
the vote. So,
okay, that's really close. Okay.
So yeah, if we imagine that the vote takes place in first week of March or the second week of March, 41 days means maybe 2 weeks you could have to sign up as a member of the party or sign people up as leadership campaigns. So once you announce that you're in, you got like 2 weeks to sign people up, maybe at most. It's going to be like a lightning race.
Yeah. Prone for errors, prone for many misunderstanding, and in the meantime, well, I some people says, okay, so we don't have a government for 2 months. No, we don't have parliament for 2 months, but we will have a government at the top that is quite distracted.
Yes, just a tad.
I think that's fair to say, but we it's not like we don't have a government. We don't have a parliament.
Yes, no,
it's not the same
we still,
thing.
even when there's an election, there's still a government that's happening.
Of course.
In terms of that distraction, we already heard that Dominic LeBlanc is not going to run, in part because he his role as finance minister, and he seems to be the front man for the U.S. negotiations, that kind of thing. So he is not going to run, which I think it was a bit of a surprise, because I think he would have been a very serious contender. And we already heard a lot of MPs saying that they had hoped that he would run. So that's the first person dropping out. Very curious to see who else will. The list of potential candidates always ends up being many, many times bigger than what the actual final list is. But we should talk a little bit of the polling that we have seen about some of the leadership candidates. First off, what is your view on party leadership polling?
Okay, so obviously, when you poll the population, you don't poll Liberal members. And that's true of any party, of
you might
any
catch a few of
race,
them,
right? Yeah, well, but it still reflects what the general population thinks. It's interesting. It's not nothing. It doesn't have much predictive value. When we had the Quebec Liberal poll last year, Denis Coderre was leading that poll, and No, I mean, nobody's serious right now, or at the time, really thinks that Denis Coderre is going to win the Quebec leadership, but it's just name recognition. So there's a lot of that, I think, Eric, you will agree. Name recognition is very important, especially in those early polls on a race. So it's interesting. I don't think it has much predictive value. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it has value in the sense of understanding what other people think about the race. And I do think that members will try to choose the most electable candidate as they perceive it. And so these kinds of polls can be useful in that sense. But like, is it very useful to know what committed Bloc and Conservative voters think who should be the leader of the party? No. Is it very useful to know what committed Liberals think? Maybe, but they're already with the party. It's almost like you need to know, you need to have polling, and I'm sure we'll see some of it. Some of the pollsters are pretty good on that kind of thing, where it is about if you're an accessible Liberal voter, whether a candidate makes a difference for you. But the thing about name recognition is so huge, especially right now. Freeland is pretty much the only one who's well recognized, so it's not a coincidence that she's leading in the polls. You mentioned the Abacus number. So they have some numbers on like familiarity with the leaders. And they do something that I really love, is that instead of giving people a name and saying, you know, what do you think of this person? They give a picture. And they say, can you name this person? 96% of people in this poll could name Justin Trudeau. 71 could name Pierre Poilievre.
That's higher.
It's higher than it was before, but it's still not that high. 76 could say Jagmeet Singh. Only Chrystia Freeland had over 50% who could name her, 51%, which was up huge. But all the other ones, Mark Carney, these are the percentages who couldn't name them. Mark Carney, 76%. Melanie Joly, 78%. Anita Anand, 85%. Christy Clark, 87%.
That's surprising.
That surprised me. And I mean, those are there's also François Philippe Champagne, 91% couldn't name him. So I
mean, it's not their fault.
No, it's not their fault. It's more of a reflection that cabinet doesn't matter as much as it used to.
Yeah, exactly.
But it does color a lot of the leadership polling we'll see, right? You're not going to think that Melanie Joly is the best person to lead the Liberal Party if you have no idea who she is. It's just as simple as that.
But Christy Clark is, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be surprised. She was the premier for, how long was she the premier? Like 8 years? No, less than that, right?
6 years or
6
something?
years.
She came in 2010 and 2011.
But also she was defeated in 2017. That's suddenly 8 years ago. My God, time goes by, right?
I'm sure she is very well known in BC. The Ipsos poll had very high recognizable numbers for her in BC. It was only 25% of British Columbians didn't know who she was in the Ipsos poll. But yeah, outside of BC, I don't know. There's not a lot of premiers, especially outside of Ontario, Quebec, maybe, who are very well known at the national level. I think that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah. Okay, just parentheses. Who would be the most known premier, not named Ford or Legault, right now?
Well, it would have been Doug Ford. Absolutely. Right now, I bet you it's
Smith?
Daniel Smith. Probably.
I think so too, huh?
Yeah. It's whoever makes the most noise at the national stage, right? The premiers of New Brunswick tend not to be national, figures that are holding up or causing issues for the federal government. So,
okay.
So anyway, it is a caveat for people to understand this leadership polling that it has limited value.
That's true. I mean, we still love it. But we have to be very careful with this. Hey, Denis Coderre wasn't on that list. Interesting. Abacus.
All right. Look, if people are playing the numbers drinking game, you're gonna get them in trouble if you keep mentioning him.
Okay. So Eric. Okay. Who wins this? Who goes? Who doesn't go? And who wins this, according to you?
Well, we're going to actually take a different approach to try to come up with a solution to that. So we'd like to play little games here on the numbers. So we're going to have a Liberal leadership auction. We're going to go through a list of the candidates. We're each going to have ourselves $100, let's call them Liberal bucks, Trudeau bucks, to spend on the auction. Okay. And so we are going to spend our money wisely to try to get the candidates that we think have the best chance of winning. And so this is a little bit of a way to talk about the odds, right? Because if you have a 100% chance that you think someone's going to win, that you want to spend all $100 of your Liberal bucks on that candidate. So we're going to play this game, and I think it'll be fun. We'll start with $5 for each of the candidates, and we'll go from there and try to choose our little roster of who we think has the best chance of winning.
Yeah, well, the thing is also, there's something here that complicates things. Because we could just bet on who we think is going to be the better candidate or has the most chances. But Eric, we do not really know what is the Liberal member mindset here. Do they want to choose somebody they think they can win with? Or are they going to choose somebody to be sacrificed, right, on the altar? I mean, we mentioned that Monsieur Leblanc has decided not to run. Maybe because he knows there's no chance he's going to win. And there are some interesting candidates for the Liberals that will wait until after the defeat. Because whoever wins that leadership election, I can see a scenario where they can stay, but they would have to rebuild the party and win something like 90 seats or something, which is out of the current ranges. So that's the thing that complicates things. I'm not sure if they want to sacrifice somebody on the altar. But okay, so where do you want to start? Do you want to go name by name, one by one? And then
I have a list of some candidates.
Okay.
And I rank them a little bit in terms of likelihood. So we have to spend our money wisely. As we get further on in this list, we'll have wished that we didn't spend as much money as we did in the early ones. So I'll go first. I will start the bidding with our first one, and then we'll go back and forth with the next one. So the first candidate on our list is the only one who is officially declared to be running. We'll see if he ends up actually making it to the end, but this is Frank Baylis. He is the former MP for Pierre Poilievre. He is the only one who's declared. We're gonna start the bidding at $5 for Frank Baylis of our Liberal bucks. What's your opening bid, sir?
I'll pass. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to spend any money on this guy either. I'm not doing that. Okay, we're going to go to the next one on the list.
No offense
to Mr. Baylis, but
no thanks.
I don't think that's going to happen. In these leadership races, there's always a few names that it might be more about profile building than it is about actually winning.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
No. Next on the list, Stephen McKinnon. So he's the MP for Gatineau. He's been involved in Liberal Party politics for a long time. He has he's worked out in Atlantic Canada. He's long been he's been an MP for a while, and he came back after the. I'm not sure if he was defeated in 2011, but he came back after he was there in the early days. He said that he's interested, and he thinks that the candidate should be someone who can speak French, which is, anytime I hear that, it is a dig at one Christy Clark, I believe. So if we're going to start at $5 for this, what do you want to do for $5? Do you want to put any money down on Stephen McKinnon?
Well, okay, so this is going to sound mean, and I don't like to do that. But this would be a perfect generic Liberal candidate, right? But one to be sacrificed, to go and to be sacrificed. So I'll put down $5 on Mr. McKinnon.
Okay. I think I will let you have him. I'll let you have him for $5. I think that he certainly probably has a lot of friends within the Liberal Party.
That
based
helps.
on his time there. But I do think there will be someone that has a better chance of winning than him. So I'm going to pass on that. All right, next on the list. You go.
Okay, so Miss Karina Gould. I think an MP that was very much on the front bench of the Trudeau government, was responsible for important files, and I think did okay in some aspects. I think she's very well liked in Liberal circles. Eric, would you bet anything on Miss Gould?
I'll use five of my Liberal bucks here. I'll start the bidding at $5 on Gould as chances of becoming the Liberal leader.
And I won't. I think Ms. Gould would be a very good candidate in the next leadership race. This time around, I'm not too sure, but I mean, she would be qualified. Not sure she would be good. I don't know if any of these would be good, but she certainly would be qualified. But I'll let you have her.
I think it's just I don't mind putting down a little bit because I think that she has the potential to have a leadership race where she ends up being maybe a consensus kind of candidate and people like her over the course of a campaign and maybe she's got a chance. I think that her chances of winning the Liberal leadership probably higher than winning her seat of Burlington, unfortunately for her.
That's the thing too, huh? Yeah.
Okay, we're going out to the West Coast with Jonathan Wilkinson, who's been a high-profile cabinet minister for the Liberals. He represents a riding just north of Vancouver. $5, start the bidding on Jonathan Wilkinson.
Correct me if I'm wrong. He was the environment minister before Guilbeault, and now he was the...
Then he went to resources,
yes,
natural resources, and now he might be something else. It's a bit of a revolving door, this cabinet, if you haven't noticed over the last little while.
I'm going to pass on this one.
You're also going to pass on Wilkinson.
Yeah.
Ooh, you're saving your money for the end.
Yes, I am.
Do I want to take a flyer on Wilkinson? I don't want to spend all my money now, but I want to have somebody. I'm thinking, what if Clark doesn't run? Then maybe there's a path for a BC candidate. So sure, candidate. I'll spend $5 more of my Liberal bucks on Wilkinson.
Okay.
I'm going to get him. So I have now $90 left. All right, next.
Anita Anand. She was procurement minister during the pandemic. She was, the vaccines minister for a while. I think, once again, very much on the front bench. Somebody qualified, somebody smart. Also, somebody who would be in tough to win her seat.
Oh, yeah, Oakville.
Very much. The 905 looks like it's flipping, right? Flipping hard. Although she could have some local effect for herself. Eric, bidding starts at $5. $5 What do you think?
Do I want to? I'm wondering if you're going to make me spend all my money early on. But I wouldn't mind having. She's one of. If she does run and she has a decent campaign, and if some of the other big names decide not to run, which is still a possibility, then I could see it happen. So I don't mind opening the bidding at $5 for Anita, and I will start at $5.
Yeah. Does she speak French? I know again the question. Does she?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I've ever heard her. But so it's not her, it's me. Huh. $5 on
during all those press conferences, she's done some in French.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, do I want to? Okay, I'll raise to $10.
That's too rich for my money.
That's too rich.
Can have Anita Nan's leadership chances for $10.
All right. So I spent 15. You spent 10 so far. The next one up, my friend, is Mélanie Joly.
No, you're skipping one first.
I'm skipping one?
Yeah. We're going to do François-Philippe
Champagne.
Champagne.
Sorry, I skipped. Not on purpose. Okay, Monsieur Champagne, Industry Minister.
Yeah. He's the MP for Saint-Maurice-Champlain.
That's right.
A question of what he's interested.
I'm sure he is.
One of his staffers or his person has said that he is actively thinking about it. There's a Quebec path that could open up. There's only really 2 Quebec candidates on the list if we even get them to if they get there with the addition of McKinnon. So $5 for Champagne. Do you want to put some plunk down 5 Trudeau bucks on François-Philippe Champagne?
That's the thing here. Again, I think he's still a young man, despite his white hair. But white hair doesn't tell the whole story. I'm pointing at my own hair. He would be better to wait, right? So,
hey, you wait. You might be waiting for 10 years. You don't know what's going to happen.
That's right. Okay, I'll put down $5 on Monsieur Champagne.
François-Philippe Champagne.
I mean, he's been nicknamed the Energizer Bunny of this government many times. He sure has a lot of energy and ideas. He's kind of charming. I've met him, very nice guy. It's just, again, he's heading for a very steep hill. And as you said, if you wait now, maybe you wait 10 years. And whoever wins this become prime minister. I mean,
he might be in the history books as the shortest serving prime minister. But,
that's right.
you're in the history books.
Still, yeah.
So you put $5 down. I'm gonna bid that up to 7.
I thought it was by 5. Okay.
Oh, maybe that would be easier. Let's do it by 5. I'll do $10 then, just to be 10 Trudeau bucks. He, as you said, Energizer Bunny. So I can see him getting a lot of people signed up and doing a very good job at that compared to some of the other candidates. And if there isn't a Quebec candidate, he could do okay. And with the kind of race that they're going to have, where it's weighted for every riding, has equal weight, and it's a preferential ballot, maybe he has a chance. So I'll plunk down $10. I'm increasing the bidding to $10.
That's the thing. There are 2 plausible. Well, the thing is, you said 2 Quebec candidates. There's 3, right? Mr. McKinnon,
Yeah,
Mr. Champagne,
also,
Madame Joly. That's
Champagne,
3.
Joly, yeah.
But it's true that McKinnon feels more like an Ottawa, gets to know Ottawa, not the Quebec one. I'll raise you to 15 on Mr. Champagne.
Ooh, that's starting to get too rich. I don't think I'm going up to 20 on
Oh!
Champagne, so I'll let you have him at 15.
Okay.
So what do you got? So I have Karina Gold, $5, and Jonathan Wilkinson, $5. And what do you have?
I have Monsieur McKinnon, Miss Hanan, and Monsieur Champagne so far.
What do you got left?
And I spent $30 so far.
Ooh,
You spent 10.
I'm gonna put the
squeeze on me.
turn
Huh?
the screws on you. Okay, Mélanie Joly, Foreign Affairs Minister, well known in Quebec. Has been, there with the party since she ran in 2015. I think who went last? I think you started on Champagne, right? So I'll have to start on Joly. I will definitely put $5 down on Mélanie Joly.
Boy, that's the thing. It really feels that if she goes and wins, she's gonna be a liberal Kim Campbell. That's
a bit, maybe, yeah.
And so if she sees this, does she even want to go there? She's still a young woman. She's my age. So do I want to... You know what? This may be a mistake, but I'll let you have Joly at $5, which I think is a discount. I think it's
that is
Joly,
a huge discount.
I think it is a discount,
higher.
but I just don't see Joly winning this. It would
For me, it's the biggest question is whether she would run.
Well, that's the thing.
She's got an important job, and she kind of signaled about how, not giving up foreign affairs right now would be a good idea. But if she runs, she'll be the main Quebec candidate, and that is still an important part of the Liberal coalition. So I'm liking that. Oof, big discount. Okay,
I know, right? You have 85 grit bucks left. I have 70. And we have 3 more names, but I may add bonus ones at the end.
Ooh,
we'll see.
Okay, all right. A little wild card. Okay, Christy Clark.
Oh, boy.
BC Premier. Seems very keen.
Very keen.
Learning French.
She seems that she really wants it. Yeah. I may be reading the tea leaves wrong, but it looks like this is one of the most motivated ones. But is she motivated this time? Or is she motivated for the 2026 race, which will happen after the election?
Maybe. I don't know. When one of my picks wins and then keeps the Liberals at 80 seats, they're going to be there until next time. So.
Oh, the thing is, she would also be a good one to be sacrificed on the altar. I think many people says, well, she's not even a Liberal, right? She voted in the conservative leadership race that Poilievre won. I mean, she didn't vote for Poilievre, but still. So I'll plunk down $5 on Miss Clark.
Okay, I'm definitely going to bid you up to 10 because she has won a leadership race before, unlike any of these other people. She knows how to campaign. She could have a pretty important base out in British Columbia and could have a lot of appeal among maybe centrist Liberals and new people that could be brought into the party that want a more centrist approach for the party. So I'm gonna up that bid to $10 very easily.
So $10. Do I let you have Christy Clark? I'll let you have her.
Wow.
I think it's also a discount, but
I'm getting these at a bargain. All right, so I'm up to only 25. I've got $75 left to spend.
Yep.
Okay, feeling good about this. Okay, next on the list, you go.
Next on the list would be the former finance minister, Miss Chrystia Freeland. I think the polls that we mentioned earlier on the podcast clearly say that she would be the front runner according to the entire population. She would also be the most known in the liberal universe, but that doesn't mean that she's the best candidate right now. So there are still some des bémols, as we say, caveats. Why don't you start the bidding on Miss Freeland? What do you think?
I will, of course, plunk down the $5 to start this off. My concern, I guess, would be, in terms of her ability to win, would be a lot of the Trudeau liberals within the party might not like her that much right now. And I'm not sure what kind of organization she has. I don't know what kind of organizer she is. So I'm not sure how high I'm going to go, but $5, I will definitely go that high.
Okay, I'll say this. What you just said about the Trudeau liberals might not like her, maybe, but I think there are fewer and fewer of them. I mean, and the polls showed that many people, including liberal voters, were kind of pushing a sigh of relief when Trudeau left. So you said 5, I'll put 10 on Miss Freeland.
Okay, all right.
Do you outbid here?
I'm definitely going to keep going up. I will go up to 15. I think she's got a very good chance. I just don't think she's a slam dunk. That's all I'm saying.
I'll bid up to 25.
25, okay.
25.
All right, so I've got $50 left. I'll go to 30. I'm going to 30 on Freeland.
I'll go to 40.
Oh.
So, do you want to spend more than half your grit bucks left on Miss Freeland?
You can have her for 40.
40, it's mine. There you go, Miss Freeland. All right. I have 30 left, and you have 75.
Okay, and you have a wild card, you said.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, I might leave a few dollars on the table, maybe. Mark Carney, former Bank of Canada governor, former Bank of England governor. Apparently, and I was reminded of this, not apparently, it was actually the case, was discussed as a potential leadership candidate back in 2013. So he's been around these circles for a little while. He says he's thinking about it. My biggest question is, one, does he actually go? But let's start. You can start the bidding on Mark Carney.
Okay. So I have $30 left.
Yeah.
I think I'll put 20.
Okay. Well, I got to have someone with a really good shot, so I'm definitely going to go up to 25. How much money did you say you have left?
Well, I have 30 left, so I could match you, but you could outbid me, and you know what? 25. I'll put all in, and I'll go with 30.
Then I will just go to 35 just to see what's left over. So
and you can
Carney
have
for
it.
$35 sold.
All right.
The former governor of the Bank of Canada.
Here's the thing with Mark Carney. At some point, you gotta think that Lucy is gonna pull that football, right? You just mentioned that he was rumored as a candidate in 2013, and I'm sure if you made a Google search about the news on Mark Carney joining the Liberals, how many pages would that be on how many years? Yeah. So maybe this is the right time, but I didn't want. I wanted to push you so you had fewer money left for my wild card here.
All right. Well, I got $40 left, 40 grit bucks. So I think that's correct. Yeah.
Yes,
so
and I have
$40 left, so I got a lot. I can outbid you on whoever you got.
There's two wild card here, and I'll go in order. Okay. The first wild card I will add. Monsieur Leblanc said he wouldn't run. But there's also stories this morning of people, MPs, actually asking him to reconsider. Like, please reconsider. You are fully bilingual. You are qualified. Yes, you were very close to Trudeau. That's true, and this could hurt you in a general. But if he reconsiders, so why don't you start the bidding on Monsieur Leblanc? He did say he wasn't gonna run, but it's early and it could change. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. If other people don't get into the running, he might suddenly feel like he has to go. So now you've convinced me of that. I will start the bidding at $5 for Dominic LeBlanc getting back into the race.
Okay, and I'll say 10.
Who's your other wild card? Do I get you get to tell
No,
me?
you
have
don't
an
get
advantage.
You chose the list. I just choose
Okay.
2 wild card at the end.
I will go up to 15. I will go up to 15.
I'll go to 20.
I'll let you have him for 20.
Okay,
I
perfect.
want to see who you got left, which I guess I will get automatically. I can outbid you.
That's right. So I'm getting Monsieur Leblanc. I know, and I will get messages. He said he wouldn't run. It's like, yeah, I know. So basically, I think that Monsieur Leblanc, who said he wouldn't run, would have a better chance than Monsieur Champagne. That's what the bidding says right now. So, and the last wild card, and you have more money, so basically you can have it, was the rest of the field. Somebody we did not like, whoever is not on the list we put there. If that person wins, that's the wild card. So I'll put all the money I have left, 10, and then you can outbid me and take it.
Sure, I will outbid you, and I will
There you
use
go.
my $40 on the field.
There you
I feel okay about this. So let's see who we got. I got Karina Gold, Jonathan Wilkinson, Melanie Jolie, Christy Clark, Mark Carney, and the field.
The field.
I think that's pretty good. I got 2 BC, I got a Quebec, and I got Carney. I feel this is a pretty good list.
I have Mr. McKinnon, Miss Annan, François-Philippe Champagne. I have Miss Freeland, which I think is the favorite, but there's still a but. And I have Monsieur Leblanc as a wild card. And again, you have the field. I kind of wanted you to have Monsieur Leblanc so I could have the field, but
Yeah.
hey, all right, we'll see. We'll see who wins. Is there like a ranking of who finishes second and third, or it's just a winner, right? We just
Maybe we'll see. Maybe we could do a value for dollar spent when it's
That's
all
right.
done. We'll see who made the best picks. So let us know if you would have bet and bid higher than we did, if you think anybody was undervalued or overvalued in our auction. So we'll see, and we'll come back to this soon enough, because the leader will be chosen
that's right.
in a short amount of time. All right, let's move to the number of the week. What do you got?
So I got 4%. This is from the Ipsos poll. How would you rate the overall performance of Justin Trudeau during his time as Prime Minister of Canada? 4% responded A. 16% said B, 20% said C, 15% said D, and 38% said fail. Now, I'm saying this because at the end of a reign, it always looks worse, right? And it will be interesting in time to see if the views soften up a bit. I know that Monsieur Trudeau has been antagonizing a lot of voters for a lot of time, but he also won 3 straight elections. So when we have some benefit of hindsight, I'm looking forward to see what time will tell. It's not like Monsieur Poilievre, if and when he takes office, is not going to have major hurdles and challenges in front of him, especially with south of the border, what's going on there. But 4% is my number of the week. What about you, Eric?
I just find that really interesting when you think about the way that we were speaking about Brian Mulroney when he passed away last year.
Yeah.
Obviously, when someone passes away, you tend to be nicer. But if anybody had been listening to that, just got in a time machine and went from 1993 to 2024 and heard that, they'd be like, what? Who was this guy? This was not the prime minister that we had 12% approval rating for. So yes, time can change views of things. That's interesting. My number of the week is 74.
Okay.
This is the number of days that the Liberals have to run a leadership race, install a new prime minister, and get that new prime minister up and running with a throne speech, cabinet shuffle, whatever they're going to do. 74 days.
I know, right?
It's not a lot of time. I looked at some of the other leadership races. So the NDP in 2017 took 15 months to choose Jagmeet Singh. The Liberals, when they had their official start in 2013 for their race, it was still a 5-month race. And from the date of Aaron O'Toole's resignation to Pierre Poilievre's win in 2022, it was 7 months.
7 months.
But you can do it faster than the Liberals have to. When the Ontario PCs
That's right.
had to have a race at the beginning of 2018. Patrick Brown resigned on January 25th, and Doug Ford won that leadership on March 10th. So that was an even shorter timeline. Yeah. So it is possible to have a race, but it's a different kettle of fish when you're the prime minister or running for be prime minister versus the opposition leader. So
in a minority parliament, that's
parliament.
different. I mean, the NDP waiting 15 months to have a leader. Yeah, it was a majority, so they had time. Yeah. Now they don't. Absolutely not.
It's going to be a crazy 74 days for us, and then another crazy 36, 50 days, whatever it's going to be for that leadership race. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Hey. There might be an Ontario election too. Did you hear about that?
That's true. I mean, they have a window now with the feds not going until the spring, right? We have many questions from our members for the mailbag about the Ontario election and Doug Ford's. So we're going to get to that now. If you're a member, get to the mailbag now. And if you're not a member, please consider joining us. It's a fun time. You get to participate in our Discord. You get to ask us questions directly and submit ideas for our special episodes. So let's get to the mailbag in a few minutes.
Yeah, numberspod, thenumberspod.ca. We got links in the show notes and in everything that has to do around this podcast. So we'll it's going to be a crazy time, Philippe. Can't wait for it, and I'll talk to you in the mailbag in a couple minutes.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Have a great week.